Hi, thank you so much for tuning back in. This is part B. My name is Lesley Donaldson, and I am narrating this incredible book called The Story, written by Max Lucado and Randy Frazee. It's incredible. We have been going along reading all the chapters every week, one chapter each week, and this week we are on chapter 17, The Kingdoms Fall. We are picking back up here on page 234, and sadly, so much out of here is they did evil in the eyes of the Lord. They did evil in the eyes of the Lord. It just keeps repeating. It just keeps repeating. And if you want to know what we're talking about, please go back to the ITR channel, the YouTube channel. At the top of the page is either home. Actually, our whole YouTube channel home page has been renovated, actually, and it looks really great, and it's very easy to follow along. So if you go to home page, the Bible study is there, or on playlists, and hit the Max Lucado's The Story playlist, and they all come up so that you can start from the beginning, chapter 1, and come all the way to chapter 17 today. So let's jump right back into reading, and it goes like this. If you have your book, it's page 234. At the time of the officers of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, advanced on Jerusalem and laid siege to it, and Nebuchadnezzar himself came up to the city while his officers were besieging it. Jehoiachin, king of Judea, his mother, his attendants, his nobles, and his officials all surrounded him. In the 8th year of the reign of the king of Babylon, he took Jehoiachin prisoner. As the Lord had declared, Nebuchadnezzar removed the treasures from the temple of the Lord and from the royal palace, and cut up the gold articles that Solomon, king of Israel, had made for the temple of the Lord. He carried all Jerusalem into exile, all the officers and fighting men, and all the skilled workers and artisans, a total of 10,000. Only the poorest people of the land were left. Nebuchadnezzar took Jehoiachin captive to Babylon. He also took from Jerusalem to Babylon the king's mother, his wives, his officials, and the prominent people of the land. The king of Babylon also deported to Babylon the entire force of 7,000 fighting men, strong and fit for war, and 1,000 skilled workers and artisans. He made Mattaniah, Jehoiachin's uncle, king in his place, and changed his name to Zedekiah. It says on the bottom here, God allowed the powerful king Nebuchadnezzar to begin crushing Jerusalem, Judea's last stronghold of promise and hope. Under Nebuchadnezzar's orders, a second, larger group of Israelites was deported to Babylon in 597 BC. Among them was a young priest named Ezekiel, a man of keen intellect, immense literary giftedness, and spiritual insight. Ezekiel relayed to his fellow exiles the stern message of God's judgment. Jerusalem was still standing, but it was the beginning of the end. In a vision, Ezekiel received his marching orders as his prophetic message: unbelief leads to doom. In here, the way it's written is, his prophetic message was, unbelief leads to doom. Goes on to read, in my 13th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day, while I was among the exiles by the Kebar River, the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. I looked, and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, and immense cloud with flashing lightning, and surrounded by brilliant light. The center of the fire looked like glowing metal, and in the fire was what looked like 4 living creatures. In appearance, their form was human, but each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings. Spread out above the heads of the living creatures was what looked something like a vault, sparkling like crystal, and awesome. Under the vault, their wings were stretched out one towards the other, and the other had 2 wings covering its body. When the creatures moved, I heard the sound of their wings, like the roar of rushing waters, like the voice of the Almighty, like the tumult of an army. When they stood still, they lowered their wings. Then there came a voice from above the vault over their heads as they stood with lowered wings. Above the vault over their heads was what looked like a throne of lapis lazuli, and high above on the throne was a figure like that of a man. I saw that from what appeared to be his waist up, he looked like glowing metal, as if full of fire. And that from there down he looked like fire, and brilliant light surrounded him, like the appearance of a rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day. So was the radiance around him. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. When I saw it, I fell face down, and I heard the voice of one speaking. He said to me, "Son of man, stand up on your feet, and I will speak to you." As he spoke, the Spirit came into me and raised me to my feet, and I heard him speaking to me. He said, "Son of man, I am sending you to the Israelites, to a rebellious nation that has rebelled against me. They and their ancestors have been in revolt against me to this very day. The people to whom I am sending you are obstinate and stubborn. Say to them, 'This is what the sovereign Lord says.' And you, son of man, do not be afraid of them or their words. Do not be afraid, though briars and thorns are all around you, and you live among scorpions. Do not be afraid of what they say, or be terrified by them, though they are a rebellious people. You must speak my words to them, whether they listen or fail to listen, for they are rebellious." The word of the Lord came to me. "Son of man, set your face amongst the mountains of Israel. Prophesy against them and say, 'You mountains of Israel, hear the word of the sovereign Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to the mountains and hills, and to the ravines and valleys. I am about to bring a sword against you, and I will destroy your high places. Your altars will be demolished, and your incense altars will be smashed, and I will slay your people in front of your idols. I will lay the dead bodies of the Israelites in front of their idols, and I will scatter your bones around your altars. Wherever you live, the towns will be laid waste, and the high places demolished, so that your altars will be laid waste and devastated, your idols smashed and ruined, your incense altars broken down, and what you have made wiped out. Your people will fall slain among you, and you will know that I am the Lord. But I will spare some, And for some of you will escape the sword when you are scattered among the lands and nations. Then in the nations where they have been carried captive, those who escape will remember me, how I have been grieved by their adulterous hearts, which have turned away from me, and by their eyes, which have lusted after their idols. They will loathe themselves for the evil they have done, and for all their detestable practices. And they will know that I am the Lord. I did not threaten in vain to bring this calamity on them. This is what the sovereign Lord says. I just have to stop there for a sec because it is so hard to read the devastation coming upon Israel in this way, and knowing this very day as I'm reading it, there is war that has broken out in Israel. And could it be the same way that it is written here? That because of sin, because of idolatry, because of all of this, because of the sins of the ancestors, because of the sins of the world, because of those sins of the Israelites and of Israel, that's what's coming. It's so hard to read. It's so hard to read. It's breaking my heart. I pray a blessing over this reading here today. And I hope you have coffee here today. It's a long reading. There's 17 pages, so it's going to be probably part A, part B, part C, part D. So we are in it for the long haul today, which I don't mind at all. I set apart the whole day to do Bible study, which is great. And anybody who has been in Bible study with me before would know that we can easily use up all that time doing Bible study and talking. I'm just here doing this and talking, kind of one-on-one with you, but the Bible study that I've done before is a big, large, round table, either full of all women or mixed and couples, or different table talks at church, which was so great. So to be able to go all around the table and hear from everybody is so great. It takes a lot of time, but so does this, and I'm thankful to be taking the time and going through this. I'm learning so much. God is really stirring up a lot of things in my heart and in my life, and I'm truly thankful for it. So let's continue reading here. I'm going to have a little sip of coffee, a little sip of water. Okay. Beautiful day here in Alberta. Nice day. We're continuing to read. We're at the top of page 237. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Disaster. Unheard of disaster. See, it comes. Doom has come upon you who dwell in the land. The time has come. The day is near. There is panic, not joy, on the mountains. And I am about to pour out my wrath on you and spend my anger against you. I will judge you accordingly to your conduct and repay you for all your detestable practices. It goes on to read, back on the home front, things were going from bad to worse in Jerusalem. But God continued to pursue and warn his people. Another prophet named Jeremiah, who called into service in a very interesting conversation with God. The word of the Lord came to me, saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Alas, sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. I am too young. But the Lord said to me, do not say I'm too young. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you. I will rescue you, declares the Lord. Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, I have put my words in your mouth. See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant. Today I have made you a fortified city, an iron pillar and a bronze wall to stand against the whole land, against the kings of Judea, its officials, its priests, and the people of the land. They will fight against you, but will not overcome you, for I am with you, and I will rescue you, declares the Lord. Knowing God was with him, Jeremiah shed his fears. Let's read that again. Knowing God was with him, Jeremiah shed his fears. May we also do the same. Known as a weeping prophet, Jeremiah felt deeply the burden of the people's sin and the coming judgment. It didn't help that his message was unwelcome and unwanted. He told of the coming destruction of Jerusalem, God's judgment for the people's sins of idolatry and pride. But another truth Jeremiah also knew and told: God's mercy will never fail. Though reprieve from punishment may seem distant, for all the crumbled buildings, lives lost in hapless battles, and lives squandered pursuing pagan pleasure, still God's mercies endure, tender mercies that will be lavished on a nation that had forsaken him. With the God of majestic love, nothing is impossible. Hear the word of the Lord, you descendants of Jacob, all you clans of Israel. Has a nation ever changed its gods? Yet they are not gods at all. But my people have exchanged their glorious God for worthless idols. They be appalled at this, you heavens, and shudder with great horror, declares the Lord. My people have committed two sins. They have forsaken me, the spring of living water, and have dug their own cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water. Long ago you broke off your yoke and tore off your bonds. You said, I will not serve you. I had planted you like a choice vine and of sound and reliable stock. But then did you turn against me into a corrupt wild vine? Although you wash yourself with soap and use an abundance of cleansing powder, the stain of your guilt is still before me, declares the sovereign Lord. As a thief is disgraced when he is caught, so the people of Israel are disgraced. They, their kings and their officials, their priests and their prophets, they say to wood, you are my father, and to stone, you give me birth. They have turned their backs to me, and not their faces. Yet when they are in trouble, they say, come save us. Where then are the gods you made for yourselves? Let them come in if they can save you when you are in trouble. For you, Judea, have many gods, as you have towns. Announce in Judea and proclaim in Jerusalem and say, sound the trumpet throughout the land. Cry aloud and say, gather together. Let us flee to the fortified cities. Raise the signal to go to Zion. Flee for safety without delay, for I am bringing disaster from the north, even terrible destruction. A lion has come out of his lair. A destroyer of nations has set out. He has let his place to lay waste your land. Your towns will lie in ruins without habitat. So put on sackcloth, lament, and wail, for the fierce anger of the Lord has not turned away from us. Go up and down the streets of Jerusalem. Look around and consider. Search through her squares. If you can find but one person who deals honestly and seeks the truth, I will forgive this city. If you do not listen, I will weep in secret because of your pride. My eyes will weep bitterly, overflowing with tears, because the Lord's flock will be taken captive. Say to the king and to the queen mother, come down from your thrones, from your glorious crowns. You fall from your heads. The cities of the Negev will be shut up, and there will be no one to open them. All Judea will be carried into exile, completely and carried away completely. The words of Jeremiah were clear, but the kings who followed Josiah refused to listen. They grew increasingly brash, ignoring the prophet's warnings and wisdom. Their tactics of duplicity and greed were destined to fail. Finally, Judea's kings had to face Babylon's full military muscle, rock hard and set to kill. The Lord, the God of their ancestors, sent word to them through his messengers again and again, because he had pity on his people and on his dwelling place. But they mocked God's messengers, despised his words, and scoffed at his prophets, until the wrath of the Lord was aroused against his people, and there was no remedy. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 11 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord his God, and did not humble himself before Jeremiah the prophet, who spoke the word of the Lord. He also rebelled against King Nebuchadnezzar, who had made him take an oath in God's name. He became stiff-necked and hardened his heart, and would not turn to the Lord, the God of Israel. Furthermore, all the leaders of the priests and the people became more and more unfaithful, following all the detestable practices of the nations, and defiling the temple of the Lord, which he had consecrated in Jerusalem. So in the 9th year of Zedekiah's reign, on the 10th day of the 10th month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, marched against Jerusalem with his whole army. He encamped outside the city and built siege works all around it. The city was kept under siege until the 11th year of King Zedekiah. By the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine in the city had become so severe that there was no food for the people to eat. On the surface, it appeared that God had abandoned his people. Where was his mercy now? Zedekiah and his associates wanted Jeremiah to step in and ask God for help. Instead, Jeremiah foretold defeat and death as the consequence of the people's continued sin. The word came to Jeremiah from the Lord when King Zedekiah sent to him Pashur, son of Malchijah, and the priest Zephaniah, son of Maaseiah. They said, "Inquire now of the Lord for us, because Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, is attacking us. Perhaps the Lord will perform wonders for us, as in times past, so that he will withdraw from us. But Jeremiah answered them, tell Zedekiah, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel says. I am about to turn against you the weapons of war that are in your hands, which you are using to fight the king of Babylon and the Babylonians who are outside the wall besieging you. And I will gather them inside this city. I myself will fight against you with an outstretched hand and a mighty arm in furious anger and in great wrath. I will strike down those who live in this city, both man and beast. They will die of a terrible plague. After that, declares the Lord, I will give Zedekiah, king of Judea, his officials, and the people in the city who survive the plague, sword and famine, into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and to their enemies who want to kill them. He will put them to the sword. He will show them no mercy or pity or compassion. That's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. I don't want to be on the side of that. And sadly, like I said today, May 13th, 2021, if you turn on the news today, war is raging in Israel. Could it be exactly what we're talking about here? Repeating itself as it did, repeating itself as it did. This is now chapter 17, and it's the main theme throughout here. All the kings continuously committed evil in the eyes of the Lord. This is the end of part B. Come right back on. We will continue reading with part C. We are on the top of page 242 of chapter 17, The Kingdom's Fall. See you right away. Bye now.